Hi there guys, it's Adam Martyn here, and welcome back to another video. And originally regarding this subject, I didn't know if I wanted to make a video about it, but with a recent article that's sort of come out about it, I thought it was important to talk about this stuff because as a performer, myself as a creative, I think having respect and respecting the people you're working with is an incredibly important part of the process, and it seems in this particular instance that hasn't happened. And yeah, I just wanted to get my thoughts on it. I might be a bit more downbeat than usual. Don't mean to be, but I think it's just the nature of what it is. You might have known recently in the news that Strictly Come Dancing has come under fire a little bit, which is like the last show you'd expect for things like this to happen. But it seems that one of the dancers, particularly Graziano De Prima, has come under fire for some of his actions during the training regime that is experienced on the show. Now, I want to get into this. This is an article coming from BBC News itself, where a spokesperson for Graziano admits that the Strictly kick was a mistake. Now, this immediately sort of caught my attention because that implies something physical happened. It wasn't necessarily just a tough, intense training environment. But anyway, we're going to get in the full context. If you're not familiar with this, stick with me. We're going to explain what happened through this article. So, the spokesman for Strictly Come Dancing's Graziano De Prima has confirmed the star kicked celebrity partner Zara McDermott once during rehearsals last year, which led to his removal from the show. There is never a time when kicking or any sense of that is right, Mark Brakowski told BBC News, and he knows that. He knows he's made a mistake. He apologised at the time. De Prima thought the matter had been resolved, but video of the incident is believed to have been brought to the attention of the BBC last week, and the dancer was then removed from this year's lineup. This was announced a few days ago that Graziano was being removed from the Strictly lineup, that he wasn't going to continue. The show has been at the centre of controversy after complaints about fellow professional dancer Giovanni Panici, as well as De Prima. And yes, Giovanni is another popular dancer from the show, who I believe is now exited, and we might talk about that a little bit later in this video, but for now I want to focus on this incident in particular. On Saturday, De Prima said he deeply regrets the events that led to his departure and that his intense passion and determination to win might have affected my training regime. Now, I don't doubt for a second that, as a professional dancer, you want to win. It's like anything that involves competition. Humans are inherently competitive. You're taking part in something, you want to win. And yes, you're the professional. You're trying to train. In Strictly's case, you're trying to train someone up who, has varying levels of dance experience. Obviously, I doubt to the extent that you have it as a professional. You're trying to teach them a lot in not a lot of time. You're performing week after week. You want to score well with the judges. And again, you want to win. I understand that. But in this case, implying that people have been kicked, I mean, that should never come into your field, even if you want to win, even if everything is like going wrong in the rehearsal room. Like, I'm as an actor myself, not even in a competitive sense, but for a show you want to do well. And even if you're in rehearsal rooms where you think someone's maybe not pulling their weight, or someone's not really listening to what you're trying to tell them, or someone's not really taking direction, you might lose your rag. You might have a moment where you snap, even maybe verbally, but you apologize. It's not okay. But the last thing I'd do as a performer, I'm trying to think of rehearsal rooms I've been in, right, where I've been pushed to my mental limit by some of the people in the room with me. I have never, ever thought that responding physically is the answer, because it isn't the answer. Ex-Love Island star and documentary presenter McDermott then posted her own statement saying she was involved in incidents in the training room that she now finds incredibly distressing to watch back. The video has not been made public, and the circumstances surrounding it are not known. BBC News has not seen the video, but understands the video shows De Prima kicking McDermott during a rehearsal. Now, I don't think this video should be made public, really. It seems, while BBC News hasn't seen it, it implied earlier that the people at the BBC, whether that's the Strictly team themselves or higher-ups at the BBC, like the higher management, have seen it. Essentially, I think the right people in this instant have seen it. I don't think we need to make this video public for anyone's sake. Mr. Bukowski said De Prima did not clearly remember the incident, but did not deny there was a kick, and the spokesperson accepted that he had crossed the line. He did, however, deny reports that he spat on his dance partner. Now, to some extent, again, obviously, I haven't seen this video. You haven't seen it. None of us have seen it apart from presumably, obviously, Zara McDermott herself and the people at the BBC who have seen it. The media sometimes, especially tabloids, they have a tendency, say if the initial thing is that she was kicked, sometimes they blow this up into more things. Again, I don't know that he did or did not spit on her. And again, he's denying that he did that. But I just want to say, especially if you see the tabloids, please take them with a pinch of salt, because sometimes they exaggerate things to the nth degree. De does remember that he was pushing McDermott quite hard in training on the day in question, said his spokesperson, but he doesn't recognise some of the issues surrounding it, he added, referring to those recent newspaper reports. The descriptions of what is being commented online and how he remembers it are not aligned, he said. And he said it was absolute rubbish that a single incident was typical of what went on during the weeks and weeks of training. There is also lots of evidence of De and McDermott having a huge amount of fun together through this process. Now, obviously what's shown on Strictly on the TV, that is, those moments in training, that is curated for the viewer. But, I don't watch it myself. I don't watch the program. I don't follow it usually this intently. So if that evidence is out there, that's great. I'm sure Strictly fans will be able to dissect that for themselves. In her statement, McDermott said she fully understood the level of commitment and hard work that Strictly was going to be, and I dedicated everything to it. I am a resilient person, and I was fully prepared to put in whatever it took, she added. Much of the Strictly experience was everything I could have dreamt of, and the show's team was so amazing to work with, she said. However, my experience inside the training room was very different. Reports have been made about my treatment on the show, and there were witnesses to some events, as well as videos of particular incidents which are incredibly distressing to watch. Now, from her statement, it's clear, at least from what she's saying, that this has, it's made it difficult for her reflecting back on this. And again, if this so-called video of the dancer kicking her, that's not okay in any circumstance. De has now returned to Italy, his home country, and is now doing manual labour on a remote farm. He said he has literally cut himself off from civilization. I think that's a wise thing to do. Supported by his wife, he's coming to terms with his mental health issues. I think taking time away from the spotlight, if it's, cutting himself off from civilization, doing remote manual labour on a farm, if that is going to help him get through what he needs to get through, sure. It seems he's admitted that this kick or, things went wrong during the regime that should not have happened categorically. I just wonder where this goes from here. I don't know if Zara, the celebrity who was involved, I don't know if she wants to escalate this any further to any sort of police thing or anything like that. But it seems that what I'm saying is if they want to draw the line here, if Zara wants to draw the line here and that Graziano is now back in Italy doing his thing, working on a farm, at least he's made this statement. It doesn't make up for what happened, obviously, but it's an interesting thing that they've done that. Mr. Bukowski said he advised De to seek professional advice since his removal from the show. Following the revelations, the BBC has announced it will put a member of Strictly production staff in all rehearsals in the future to observe behaviour. There will also be enhanced training and 2 new dedicated welfare producers, one for the celebrity contestants and the other for the professional dancers. Now, these are good moves. Admittedly, these are good moves. The thing about production staff to observe behaviour, honestly, in the TV world now, I don't know why this wasn't done before. Yes, Strictly's been going for 20 years, and you can tell me throughout the 20 years that there hasn't been an incident like this, so why would you need it, etc. But just with the amount of safeguarding that goes on now for any kind of TV work, I'm honestly astounded that people weren't in the production room before. I'm honestly astounded that people weren't in the rehearsal room before. I know sometimes the cameras go in to film rehearsal footage that they put for the VTs before they dance, but yeah, I'm honestly surprised some kind of chaperone, I guess, wasn't present beforehand. That baffles me. And the welfare officers or welfare producers, again, I think that's a great idea because when you're working on a show like this, I can imagine it is intense. Dancing's an intense art form, and when you're doing it in such a short amount of time, particularly if your experience is less, it might be very intense and you need that welfare producer. So I think having them for both the celebrities and the dancers, because they go through stuff as well, I think that's really important and a good step forward. Though why it's taken this long beats me. The BBC director of Unscripted, which is Kate Phillips, said the vast majority of those who've taken part in the show have had positive experiences. If issues are raised with us or were made aware of inappropriate behaviour, we will always take that seriously and act. Concerns that have arisen have been fundamentally related to training and rehearsals. The BBC has now taken decisive steps to further strengthen the welfare and support in place for everyone involved with this production. And, from my experience, just as a casual person who doesn't even watch Strictly, the experience does seem to relay as very positive for the amount of people who go on it. Again, Strictly seems a show that is nearly devoid of controversy. This shouldn't have happened, and these steps are taking place. There is a bit more about the training, how it's intense, The spokesperson, Mr. Bukowski, said the BBC arguably have come in late to addressing the issues involved, and the corporation had been aware of all the professionals and how hard they push it. The training process for novice dancers is intense, he said. It's an incredibly difficult thing to go from turning that person from an ugly duckling into a swan. Interesting comparison, but I sort of get what they mean. But this is what I mean, particularly if you're a novice dancer, to not have some sort of welfare officer or chaperone available to you or in the room does seem a bit odd, really. And about the BBC coming in late with this one, yeah, I think they have. Former Strictly Professional Kristina Ryanov, who was on the show between 2008 and 15, described it as a world of glitz and glamour and a lot of pressure. Any verbal or physical abuse is not acceptable at all, she told BBC News. I don't believe violence of any kind, abuse of any kind, is the answer to anything. And I would agree with her. She's quite right. You've got to be able to regulate your emotions. You're an adult. You've got to regulate it. You've got to understand that you're hired to do a very intense job and you get frustrated, tired, you can snap, but physical abuse, obviously, is a no. We see the glamour and the glitter on a Saturday night, but prior to that, it is grueling hours, hard work, a lot of emotions, a lot of stress. And she's called for better psychological evaluations. Well, hopefully from the welfare producers that have now been appointed, those chances for them to sort of voice out frustrations, what they're feeling, if they're feeling that intensity, whether that be the celebrities or the professionals. Again, I think that's a step in the right direction. Broadcaster Reverend Richard Coles told BBC Breakfast he had a whale of a time when he took part in the show in 2017, but he wasn't surprised by the current furore. Strictly is show business. The family-friendly, glittering surface that you see, well, behind that there's all sorts of things going on, not least intense competition. It's such a big show. The professional dancers have been doing it literally since they were kids in a very disciplined, very rigorous, very tough, sometimes even brutal kind of world. I think sometimes when celebrities encounter that, there's a kind of culture shock. Somebody I knew who worked on the show for a long time described it as a great show with a dark heart. God, that's a damning statement. I didn't really understand what they meant when they said that, but I think it's partly that in the glitter of the glitter ball, you see one thing, but off stage, of course, it's a different story. And I have lots of friends in the dance world. I'm an actor mainly, but again, I have lots of friends who've worked in dance, and they say it is very rigorous. It's very tough, borderline cruel in some respects. And I'm obviously talking to someone who's not a dancer. I would argue to be cruel is not necessarily the right way forward. But again, if you're a dancer out there, you might think I'm being naive on that. But certainly to be verbally and physically abusive in some form, whether intentional or not, should never be okay. I do understand the culture shock that Richard Coles is talking about there, because if you've been doing this professionally since you were small and you're used to that more intense, sometimes really difficult kind of environment, and then you're a celebrity coming in, you've never experienced that, I get it's a culture shock. And I think, you've went in dancing, same with acting, with any performing, you've got to push people to a degree. You've got to push them to give the best that they can give, or make sure that they're giving everything they've got to it. But there is that line. There is that line. And to be verbal or physically abusive or negative with someone in that way is wrong. Talking about wanting to get it right, there's a wider culture of intense competition in the dance world, according to Terry Hyde, a dancer-turned-choreographer who has set up the charity Steps to provide mental health support for dancers. Many dance teachers and choreographers are supportive, but others still work in the old school way. He said, this is what I'm talking about. They're perfectionists, they want to get it right, and they don't want to be made to look stupid by a partner that can't dance. These celebrities, unless they've done musical theatre, have probably never done anything like that before. The other thing to say is good dancers don't necessarily make good choreographers or good teachers. That's a very interesting comment, isn't it? Saying that even if you're a great dancer, doesn't always translate to teaching or planning choreography, which is, again, a very interesting notion. And again, I understand you're a professional. You want to do well. You want to have a partner who does well. But I think you have to recognize as well, particularly in a job like Strictly, some are coming into it completely for the first time. Their expectations are going to be completely different. What they can pick up is going to be completely different. What if you end up working with a performer who's neurodivergent in some way? What if they have, say, autism or ADHD or something like that, where maybe the instructions, they might not be able to pick it up straight away, or it might take them a little bit longer. There has to be these allowances for things like that. And you want to get it right. You expect a high standard. But again, I know I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but it's so true. Any kind of verbal or physical abuse in this environment, in any sort of performance environment, whether you're a dancer, actor, singer, whatever it is, it's not okay. And I know I'm getting worked up about it because I've seen this happen. I've seen this happen in rehearsal rooms. I've seen it happen, when you're on stage sometimes. It's a horrible, horrible remnants of the way the entertainment industry very much used to be or was dominated by this sort of behaviour. It shouldn't be like this now. Under any circumstances, it should not have moments like this. Even a show like Strictly Come Dancing, this ultra family-friendly, squeaky clean show, and they say, oh, well, this happens behind the scenes, it doesn't translate to the TV. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, both the professional dancers and the celebrities taking part, they are individual people who were involved in this. And whether or not you see their discomfort, their frustrations come out on the TV screen, it's irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. Anyway, just to try and simmer down a bit, I just wanted to touch on Giovanni as well, because, again, he's been a presence on Strictly for a long time, and now he's not going to come back. This was reported in early June. Again, this is from the BBC. He's been dancing on the show since 2015, winning it in 21 with actress Rose Ayling-Ellis, with some rather beautiful dances as well, I must add. The news comes weeks after he denied reports about his teaching methods on the show. He said he was surprised by the allegations about his dance teaching methods and rejected any suggestion of abusive or threatening behaviour. Prior to this announcement, Giovanni had done his own statement, where he said, "Those who follow my journey on Strictly over the last decade will know I am passionate and competitive. No one is more ambitious for my dance partners than me. I have always striven to help them be the very best dancers they can be. This has always come from a place of love and wanting to win for me and my dance partners." The Italian star was paired with Sherlock actress Amanda Abbington last year. She withdrew from the competition, citing personal reasons. It was widely reported that Abbington had experienced difficulties with Panici, but she has not confirmed this to BBC News. The fact that now there's two dancers who are embroiled in sort of similar allegations, if you want to call them that, it's not a good look, particularly for Strictly, which is a huge show for the BBC and has been for the last 2 decades. To round off on it, I mean, going back to Graziano specifically, if he's seemingly, or his spokesperson seemingly owning up that some kind of kicking did happen, not okay. And for the BBC to drop them from the show is absolutely the right decision. I can only hope that Graziano, like his spokesperson said, is going to get some help for his mental health or whatever it might be, and that he's taking time away from the spotlight to do this, hopefully. And for obviously Zara, it's a shame that this has happened, and it clearly left some frustration there, which is horrific. And, some would say this is going to mar the 20th anniversary celebrations of Strictly because, it is the 20th anniversary. The show is still going to go ahead. I don't doubt for a second it's going to be pulled off the air, but this is a cloud that is going to hang over it in some way, shape, or form. And with these measures they put in place, the BBC, yes, they are the right steps. Having a member of the production there, having these welfare producers, absolutely the right move. But is it too little, too late? We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, I know this has mainly been a sort of more somber kind of video, and again, I've gotten quite irate at points, but I just want to reiterate again, as a performer myself, as someone who works in the entertainment space, these kind of actions, these things happen more often than you might think. It's not good. It's not okay. It's not acceptable. And it just makes me sad that it's happening on high-profile shows such as this. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. I've been Adam Martyn from AMTV. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show. And a special thank you to Macra, Ethan Carberry-Holt, Bruce Danton, Derek Chambers, Shaun Knock, Daud Khan, Liam De-Maine, Trev Hughes, Deck, Evan Hart 41, Jen, Tim Ripley, Mr. Eurovision 1986, Ted Elliott, John Wakefield, and Marnan L. Thurman, our AMTV staff members.